Morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. For those who don't know me, my name is Nick Allen. I'm the managing partner at Savant. For those that don't know Savant, we are a hardware and deep tech innovation incubator and venture capital fund, working with deep tech science and engineering innovators from the very early stages of their commercialization journey all the way through to market and scale. See, we get a lot of great innovators coming through our door with deep tech innovations and maybe not so deep tech innovations. And one of the things we've really got to do is make a call on how deep their innovation and how deep their tech is. And it's a challenging task. You know, how do you work out? You know, you have this disparate range of opportunities coming through your door. You know, how do you make sure that the tech that you're working on is actually deep tech? So over years, we've developed the Savant patented deep tech analyzer. Deep tech is patented in 47 countries around the world. Bowmans will be happy to hear that. Combination of fluid mechanics and artificial intelligence. And when an opportunity comes to the door, we use our deep tech analyzer to plumb the depths of the technology and then we count the bubbles, and the more bubbles, and as you can see, that we also have an indicator of whether we're going to have a unicorn on our hands or not. So I didn't get the memo about putting my notes on a cell phone. I'll do that next time. So one of the questions that comes up time and again when we talk about deep tech is, what exactly is deep tech? And that question came up again this morning. What is deep tech? And I think it's very important that we do understand and do come to an agreement on what deep tech is, to know that we're talking about the same things. There are probably some deep tech people in the room today. Anybody want to have a stab at what deep tech is? What's deep tech in your world? Anybody? No takers? Oh, it's a bit disappointing. So from a Savant perspective, we see deep tech as a deep tech startup, one that is built on a deep understanding of science and engineering. These are innovators that have done a lot of work and a lot of research in very important science and engineering skills and technologies. These are often startups that are basing their technology on multiple different disciplines, and they're solving significant challenges. They're not solving, dog walking apps, or even if they're connected to an AI, that doesn't fit the bill for us when it comes to deep tech. So why is deep tech important to us in Africa? Well, it's fairly obvious. There are a range of very significant challenges that we need to face and need to solve on the African continent and around the world. And the majority of the major challenges that we face are going to be solved through deep tech. A BCG report stated that tech startups solve, and there are plenty of SDGs that we need to solve on this continent. So with that in mind, where are we? What is the status quo? We're very fortunate from a Savant perspective to work with a number of deep tech startups. And just two examples of companies solving SDGs that we work with is Trailblazer Technology, using chemical engineering and process engineering to take acid mine drainage and turn it into agricultural water, and with the remainder turned into fertilizer. So you're taking a huge problem that the mines in South Africa and across the country are faced with, and turning it into a solution, which is a fantastic outcome. Another example is AID, who you'll hear from a little bit later, biomedical engineering and artificial, and creating a solution for effectively and efficiently diagnosing tuberculosis and other lung diseases. Obviously, tuberculosis is a huge issue here in South Africa. Across the continent, there are a number of other people, a number of other startups doing fantastic things from a a deep tech perspective. Some examples that we've looked at: RxAll from Nigeria, using nano scanners, artificial intelligence, and cell phones to ensure that the drug quality of the pharmaceuticals that you're using is up to scratch, to make sure that the scourge of fake pharmaceuticals across the African continent is looked at. Yamachi Biotech from Ghana, using, and I've got to get this right, cutting-edge immunogenomics, bioinformatics, and artificial intelligence to accelerate cancer detection and cures. From Egypt, there's Proteina, using physics AI and molecular dynamics in drug discovery, and as mentioned previously, InstaDeep, the darling of African innovation at the moment, using its AI-powered decision-making for corporates to help companies like BioNTech accelerate their vaccine discovery. Most recently and most importantly, sold to BioNTech for $680 million. What a great story for the African continent and African innovation in total. From a country perspective, we see that deep tech is dominated by the usual big four in Africa: South Africa, Kenya, Egypt, and Nigeria being the biggest players, with unsurprisingly South Africa and Egypt with their very strong education and very strong tertiary education systems dominating. But we also see other pockets of excellence, particularly Tunisia and Ghana, as evidenced by Yamachi and InstaDeep. From a thematic perspective, most active deep tech areas, if we are to take away particularly those AI-specific companies, and there are a lot of AI companies that seem to think that they may be deep tech, it's probably a discussion to be had. If we leave out fintech and we leave out logistics, unsurprisingly, the deep tech innovations that dominate on the African continent are clean tech, ag tech, and health and biotech. Obviously, where there's startups, there is going to be funding, and VCs not far behind, particularly when you have $680 million exits available. And while the majority of deep tech investments on the continent are being done ad hoc by non-focused investors, i.e. VCs that do not have a deep tech focus, it's very good to see that there are the beginnings of interest in that. So we have Sequence Ventures from Egypt that has made 20 investments into deep tech. It's a very specific deep tech fund. Here in South Africa, we have AlphaWave down in Stellenbosch that has a specific portfolio of deep tech startups. Also interesting is that there is certainly a renewed interest. There's a lot of buzz around deep tech, and we're assuming that there are going to be a number of other deep tech focused VCs coming out of the environment sometime soon. And we've also seen international players like SOSV, Founders Factory Africa, and Plug and Play Ventures also putting money into deep tech in Africa, which is obviously encouraging for the continent. So we've got great startups, we've got great scientists and engineers on the continent, VCs putting money into it. The state of deep tech in Africa is a good one. Everything's going in the right direction. Unfortunately, the stats and the numbers don't really back that up. In 2022, approximately $190 million went into deep tech in Africa. Again, if you take out the fintech component of pure fintech component of deep tech, what we like to see is pure deep tech. $190 million might seem at face value as a fairly large amount of money, but it's only 3.5% of the total venture capital investment on the continent in 2022. It gets worse when you look at where we stand from an international perspective, where over $60 billion went into deep tech in 2022. So we're less than 0.3% of the global deep tech economy. Clearly something has to change. So the thing is, what is the challenge? Why are we lagging so far behind? We know that our VC environment is so far behind, and it's doing a very, very good job of accelerating its catch-up. But what does it need to do What does deep tech need to do? And what is the big challenge? Well, obviously, deep tech in itself is a very, very challenging place to play. Deep tech, as everybody says, that when I bump into them and talk about it, is hard. The science is hard. The engineering is very, very difficult. And as the lawyers and the patent attorneys would like to say, it's non-trivial for somebody skilled in the art. It's a very, very difficult thing to get right. To get it right, you need lots of investment over a very long period, working on top of a very well-functioning ecosystem. And that, in many parts of Africa, is not working. In the majority of Africa, that's not working. We're in a scenario where the majority of those companies that succeed from a deep tech perspective, so despite the ecosystem supporting them and not because of it, that's something that really does need to change. So what do we need to do? What do we need to do to change this? And as always, it needs a lot of investment, a lot of resource commitment and a lot of capital to go into it. But it's important that that comes from the right areas. Government has a very, very important role to play in this, and that comes from a very early stage. Government needs to support those educational institutions, the universities, the science councils that are doing that initial fundamental research, doing that R&D that is going to result and lead to those deep tech companies of the future. The governments across the continent need to continue supporting those universities that are going to produce the scientists and engineers of the future that are going to run those deep tech companies. In addition to that, more government support, the likes of the tiers across the continent are needed to ensure that that ecosystem that is going to support them, those early stage fundings, those businesses, when they come out of that R&D period and go into commercialization, that those first checks that go into those businesses, these are typically far too early from a VC perspective. So government still has a role to play there. That's where the likes of Tia and Patrick come into the party. But that needs to be replicated across the continent. The next component is the support environment that those organizations play in. Those startups need to be supported properly. So incubators and accelerators across the continent need to be equipped, and we need to have more dedicated deep tech incubators and accelerators across the continent that have the skills, the know-how, the experience, and the capacity to support these early stage companies in their commercialization journey. Corporates have a very big role to play. Globally, $20 billion a year is invested through corporate venture capital into deep tech. This is something that we're really not seeing on the African continent, and that really does need to change. There are very few players beyond the likes of a Sibanye-Stillwater and one or two other players that are actually putting money into a very early stage in and we have to realize that deep tech is solving those challenges that are going to keep us awake for a long time. We have to put money, let's have to be putting money behind that. Venture capital needs to come to the party very much more so than it's doing at the moment, and not just from the perspective of broad venture capitalists playing on an ad hoc basis into deep tech. It's really important that we see more committed and focused deep tech investors across the continent, because that's where the success is really going to come from, that ability to understand and support those businesses to the better. Successful deep tech is a continental imperative. The rest of the world's not going to come and solve our Africa-specific problems for us. We've got to do it. Let's go and do this together. Thanks, people.